my friends, welcome episode 27. And I know we're in a bit of a funky situation here with me in the corner and with a black box around me. We're trying out VNyan for the first time with all the issues we had with VC Face. I figured now is it's as good a time as any to give it a shot and see if how it goes, how it works. So I apologize. I need to get this episode out, so you'll have to see that black box on the screen, and the tracking will probably be a little funky, and but the alternative is having a black screen. So we'll keep me on the screen, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. But I don't know. I mean, most people probably just listen anyway, so you probably don't even care. You probably don't even care that my face is there, like, looking a little jank. So it's all good. We'll make it work. So yeah, welcome to episode 27. Did I say that already? Did I already say the episode we're on? I don't know. We're on episode 27. If that's exciting to you, cool. If that's not exciting to you, then leave. Just kidding. You don't have to leave. But maybe you should. Maybe you should leave. If you don't like it here, you don't have to stay. I'm not forcing you, okay? But yeah, welcome back. Another month, another podcast episode. We made it through August already. We had our subathon with everything in the world possibly breaking. But yeah, we're getting to try VNyan for the first time, and well, I don't know. It's not necessarily the first time. I played around with it the other day, but it's. I gotta figure some things out. I gotta actually sit down, and maybe I'll have time on Monday before Tuesday's stream to do a deeper dive into it. Because if not, our Tuesday stream could be a little jank. Let me tell you, but I think it'll be okay. I think I don't think it'll take that long. I think an hour or two I should be able to make it a passable, thing. Possible job. But that is not what we are here to talk about today. What we are here to talk about today is just podcast things, and our the topic I kind of wanted to talk about today. We didn't, just so everyone knows, we did not get any questions for this month's episode, but I did release the form very late, so that's my bad. But for the most part, the questions have died down, and I think you've got your fill of questions. So for the most part, I think we'll just be talking. And today we're talking about empathy. And I don't know, I had an interesting conversation this week that sparked it. Me thinking about empathy and just kind of how we feel about other people succeeding, and how we feel about other people having hardships, and how we, I don't know, how we're all imperfect, but we can, I guess, just do our best to be supportive of one another, because life is freaking hard. So yeah. So let's talk about it. So, conversation I had was with my mother this week, and my parents are boomers, and they act like boomers. They have boomer beliefs, such as like you gotta suffer to build character. You gotta. We don't believe in no handouts for no people who didn't do nothing. Like, you don't deserve it. Shouldn't have an easy life. We didn't have an easy life. When in certain ways, I would say that's debatable. But anyway, so that's the topic. So yeah, I was having this conversation with my mom and talking about someone who we know that got a large amount of money from their father to help them buy a house, and so we're kind of I guess just talking about that that idea, because my parents didn't give me anything at all. By pretty much in my life, my parents haven't given me anything. Like, I mean, other than like living with him for 18 years, but like they didn't pay for any of my college. They didn't pay for any of my house. Nothing, right? But that's okay. I didn't need them to, but like, yeah, we got to talking about that, and kind of their belief. And my mom said the classic boomer line. This feels like the quintessential boomer line, and she said, well, suffering builds character, so uh, that's good. You gotta suffer, and so I asked her pretty much straight up because I had to move to another state because I would never have been able, like, never. She had her idea. Well, maybe they should have just kept saving up, and then their dad wouldn't have to pay for their house, and so I'm like, well, in California, their down payment for a pretty modest house was like a couple $100,000, and I'm like, that's pretty much for a lot of people. That's like your entire life savings of savings. So like basically, I don't think that would ever. I'm like, I don't think that would ever happen, Mom. So like, I don't think that's an option at their current. I mean, I guess if you win like the lottery or something, but for most people, saving up a couple $100,000 is especially in this economy, is a decades with an S long endeavor at best case, and some people can't ever do that anyway. So we were talking about it, and it was and I believe my mom when she told me this, but I said, well, Mom, the alternative would have been that they would have been looking at to move out of state and be far away from their family, and so like, I don't know, can you blame them for like they'd rather give their child a bunch of money rather than have their child move out of state and hardly see them? They wanted the option of having them live close by versus seeing them maybe a couple times a year, if they didn't buy them a house, because they would have only been able to buy a house in another state. And my mom, and this is something that hits home because that's what I had to do. And I said, so Mom, if you were able to give me like a couple $100,000 to buy a house in California, you wouldn't have done that? And my mom actually said, no, I wouldn't. And like that hits hard because like I know it's not just like my mom doesn't care about me and like wants me to fuck off, because I know my mom talks all the time like, oh, I miss you so much, like I want to see you like blah blah blah. So like I know it's important for her to have me nearby, right? But she just straight up said like, no, I wouldn't give you that money because in their belief, and I quote, suffering builds character. So like that was interesting to me. Like, you straight up know that like what you want, right? And like this is like I don't know. It seems very crazy to me to just straight up say like, yeah, I know this is what I would want, is like you being close by, but I'm too strong in my beliefs that even if I could, and mind you, my parents don't have 200,000 to give me, or really hardly any amount of money to give me. But that was very interesting to me that it was like, even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you because you got to suffer. You got to suffer to build character. And I think it's an interesting point because I find myself as I get older, I do find myself falling into that trap, and I'm going to call it a trap because I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's the right mindset, in my opinion. And I have found myself in that before. I'm 36 years old. I have been working for 13 years straight. That is, I have been unemployed for 0 days in the last 13 years. I have not taken a sick day in 13 years. I mean, I have a little bit of time off. Sure. Every once in a while, I might get a couple days off other than the weekend. But for me, I found myself at times falling into that trap that I think past generations have, where I'm just like, oh, these kids these days have it so easy. Like, they're 28 years old or whatever. I'm just saying a random age. They're 28 and they're living with their parents, and the parents are not charging them much rent. Like, my parents charged me rent at 21 years old, and they're this age, and they have had a bunch of unemployment, and they're working part-time, and like finding excuses like to, I guess, be down on other people. Like, oh, they've just had it so much easier. Like, that's not fair because I've worked every day for the last 13 years with no help or barely any family support. Like, and so I definitely find myself falling into that trap sometimes. And I can see how, like, I can see how someone can fall into that because I'm only 13 years in. Imagine how I'm going to be at 50. Can you imagine another 14 years where presumably I will hopefully not be unemployed at any point and just be working straight through and not taking any sick days and just grinding it out, right? Like, I wonder how I'll be at 50, for example. So I can definitely see how people fall into that trap, the older generation. But I think it's very important as we get older. Maybe you at 22 or 23, if you're listening to this, you're a youngin'. Maybe you haven't ever felt that way. But I just urge you to consider that you may reach a time in your life where those feelings might creep in a little bit, and you might be thinking that. And I don't know. I guess I just urge you to try to maintain that level of empathy for your fellow person and understand that it's okay if someone has an easier time than you. It's not a measurement of like how much you struggled or how hard your life is. And I understand that frustration. And I think it's only human to sometimes feel jealous or say, wow, I wish I would have got a $200,000 house or like a $200,000 gift from my family so I didn't have to move out of my home state and could have just stayed, where my family was and stuff. And it's easy to say from that end as well, if you're older, well, you didn't need to buy a house. I mean, sure, no one needs to buy a house, but as someone who's been kicked out of my rental properties, who's had horrible experiences renting, it's fair for it to be attainable, and it sucks that we have to move. But I mean, it's either get a gift or you have to move out of state. Well, I wasn't getting a gift, so I moved out of state. Or maybe you're lucky and you live in I say lucky. It's not like it's like, oh, you're so lucky for living in a lower cost of living state, or your family's from a lower cost of living state. But yeah, maybe you're fortunate that you can buy a house in your home state for cheap enough that you don't have to get a gift or move. So that's awesome. But yeah, I guess the overlying point is be understanding, and it's okay to acknowledge your own struggles, and to say like, yeah, I've suffered here and like I've done all this and without any help. It's okay to be proud and to say that I'm proud of the fact that I didn't get any help, or like I didn't need to have my parents buy me a house or pay for my college or even give me free rent. I didn't need any of that. And that's okay to be proud of that. Like, there's nothing wrong with being able to say, like, I did it on my own and it was hard. And that's totally fine. But it's also important to understand that different people's circumstances can be different. And to say someone's accomplishment is lesser, or that, they're not going to be a good person because they didn't, quote unquote, suffer as much as you, is just silly. And like, I don't know. It just seems dumb to me that, because I have seen really good people who've suffered, and I've seen really good people who have had, for all intents and purposes, and lack of a better way to say it, who have had a pretty easy life, and they're good people, and they bring value to society, and like they're people I think highly of their moral character and the type of person they are, and their character, So, like, it's not, sure, I guess suffering can build character, but suffering can also just make you into a bitter, ugly person. So it's not inherently a good thing. And I've tried to use my suffering to, still maintain some semblance of, like, a good attitude about life in the world. Like, you guys know me. I consider myself a pretty darn big optimist, almost to the point of being annoying sometimes. And I think that's important. And like, I didn't build optimism from suffering for sure. So it's just something that I had and that I was able to maintain. And I guess that's the key, is to be able to if you're gonna suffer, don't let yourself become a bitter, ugly person, because I do see a lot of bitter, ugly people who, who basically they let that suffering turn them into not a very good person, because they're just negative, and they're just, at the end of the day, not good people. Even though they suffered, they did not use that as a positive. So if you can use it as a positive, I guess the key really is to use it as a positive, to understand what suffering is and to understand what that's like, so that others may not have to. Like, how can we make it easier? And I think that, isn't that like the whole point of being a parent? You want your children's lives to be easier than yours were. I feel like we've lost that a lot. I mean, my mom straight up said, I don't want your life to be easier than mine. I want you to suffer. I had to suffer. Well, I'm gonna have a quick sippy of water. But yeah, like, isn't that a crazy thing to say? Like, that you want your child to suffer. You want them to have as hard of a life as you did. I don't know. And I straight up told my mom, I'm like, I'm not a parent. There's a good chance I never will be. But like, I must admit, if I had the money and I could pay for my child to be able to live closer to me because they can't afford a house otherwise in our home state, I would be paying for it. I don't care. I don't care if they're, quote unquote, they can build character. If I had that money and I loved my child and I wanted to make their life easier, I would do anything I could to make their life easier. A lot of parents have college funds. I feel like a lot of people like around my parents' age and stuff had college funds for their kids. My parents didn't have any college funds. That would have been nice. I still have student loan dang debt. That sure would have been nice. And it's just, it's a matter of, I can't imagine. And I probably will never get to utilize these, beliefs that I have about raising kids, but I have seen how hard life can be and how hard it is now, even how hard it is compared to 10 years ago. And I can't, even like to imagine like 20 years from now and stuff. And like, yeah, it's going to be the world is going to continue getting harder. And if you have the ability to make it easier on the person you love most, right, which is, I assume, your kid, it's the same thing. I mean, if I was in a relationship, I would want my partner to be taken care of. Same thing. Like, if they're in a situation where they're struggling, and like, even I feel like even if it was in, and I understand this is a slippery slope, even like in a situation where the money isn't shared, and like if I had like full faith in them, I would want to help them however I could. And it's the same thing, I feel like, with a kid, and you just want the world to be better. Like, what is the point of suffering? There isn't. Like, I work really, really hard. Really, really hard. I've always managed a full-time job, multiple side hustles, like doing, right now, a dog and a house and umpteen other things. But if I won the lottery tomorrow, there's no value in suffering. If I won the lottery tomorrow, I would be taking it easy and letting myself relax and enjoy life. There's no I don't see the value in suffering. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if there's any boomers listening to this, they'll say, wow, what a out of touch millennial. But it's just how it be. And I'm not a guy who's got tons of handouts and had it super easy. Yeah, I'm really not. My first job after college, I made $11 an hour and paid California rent and bills and student loan and all kinds of other stuff. Barely ever ate out. Used the clearance section. I was a clearance section king. I still am a clearance section king, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I have felt it, and I think, and I feel that that's kind of the kind of people who someone who's, I guess, lived it and can, that should be the type of person that can change minds of the older generation. But you know, a lot of the time they're stubborn, and maybe there will be a day where I'm stubborn. I don't know, but I try to be just not judging, and I understand there's a lot of different things going on behind the scenes, mental health issues and physical health issues, and sometimes life is just dang hard, and sometimes I even have to work myself into gear and say, like, it's time to get some shit done. I've been sick this last week, so I'm behind on every single thing. And I know even getting this podcast episode done, I had to say, all right, Raiety, it's time to get some shit done. Time to lock in. And I totally understand what it's like to struggle, to find motivation in a cruel world where you're not really rewarded. Like, I have a lot of things that I'm fortunate to have, that I'm thankful to have. But for the amount of work I've done in the last, you know, I've been living on my own for 12, well, really since 2021 is when, or 2010 is when I went to college and moved out. And then I was in college, and then I moved out for realsies, like back in my hometown in 2013. So, I mean, realistically on my own, other than a few months when I came back in December 2012 to May of 2013, I lived with my parents for a few months. So other than that, I mean, I've been on my own for the last 15 years, living on my own, or with someone, but not with my parents, you know. I had a roommate in college for a little bit, and that was something. So yeah, what's the point I'm getting at? The point I'm getting at is it's tough, and you're really not. It's easy to feel discouraged because you can do a lot of work, and the reward can feel minimal, right? It's not like, you know, sure, there's a chance you could get rich, quote unquote, or be famous, and, you know, you pop off on a social media or something, you become a rich influencer on Twitch, you know, something like that. But and that is possible. Sure, hard work, you know, you can achieve things, blah, blah, blah. But there's people who work hard who just, you know, they achieve things, but they're not, you know, the juice, this is a famous saying for you non-Americans, you might not have heard it, but it's like the idea of the juice being worth the squeeze. So like you squeeze a fruit, how much juice you get? Not all that much, right? You're probably expecting more. And it's that idea of like, I put in all this work and what did I get? Well, I got somewhat less debt than other people, and I can kind of occasionally afford eating out or like going to on a trip somewhere, like very occasionally, like once a year, once every couple of years. But it doesn't feel like your work is receiving an equal amount of you're not, how do I say this? You're not getting back enough for the amount of work you're putting in, it feels like, right? And I think people feel like that all the time with all kinds of things. People will feel like they're putting a lot of work into their content creation, or they're putting a lot of work into a business, or they're putting a lot of work into their relationship, any of those things. And sometimes you just feel like you're putting in a lot of work and the result you're getting back is not that great. And, you know, I think there's an idea again. I feel like an idea from the older generation, like, well, you're just not trying hard enough then. But sometimes there's people who work really hard. They're really talented. They do everything right. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. And people don't want to imagine that possibility because that's a shitty reality, right? Like, no one wants to imagine. Everyone wants to, like, believe the dream that, yeah, if you try hard enough, then you'll get it, you know, or you'll achieve it. And it's just not the case. And I think everyone could pretty much agree that we all wish that were the case, because that's the fairy tale ending, right? Is like, hey, if you really want something, if you really try for something, then you can do it. But it's not. It's just not. And that's why we have to be understanding to the people. And I always try to, anything I see, you know, I have talented people that I work with who are not really, really talented people, hard workers, like really good at their jobs, who can't get that promotion or aren't making as much money as they should be, or content creators. As someone who's like very active in the content creator space, I see really, really, really talented people who just don't have a very big following, and people don't like to acknowledge that in life there is luck. Luck does play a factor in everything you do, and that's okay. And that's okay. And it's kind of a beautiful thing, because it is a way that someone who you might not expect could possibly hit it big on, as a content creator, or could get a big job promotion. Even me, when I got my first job, I got lucky. Like, on paper, I wasn't qualified, and they probably shouldn't have given me a second look, but I knew I was good. But from a perspective, there's probably people who are more qualified than me that applied for that job. And so, like, luck is a big factor. And I've talked a lot about luck in life, and luck can feel bad, because sometimes you can look at something and be like, dang, I worked so hard, and this guy who doesn't even deserve it, like, got that job, or is like popping off on Twitch, and like, that's stupid. And so, like, I think everyone has probably felt like that at times, and been frustrated by luck. But it'll always play a part in life, and I think that's where the empathy comes in. Luck goes both ways. Sometimes people just have excessively bad luck, and they're a hard worker, and they are a good person, and they do a lot of things right, but they just can't get they just can't get the ball rolling how they need to in life. And I think it's important to realize that, and be empathetic for those people who maybe need a little more help just because luck hasn't gone their way. And that's okay, because we're all susceptible to it. Like, I like to think, I always, and I have fallen into that boomer mindset as well, where I'm just like, haha, I'm such a hard worker. If shit went wrong for me, I would still prevail. And I like to think that, because it's comforting to think that. But I don't know. Like, if I lost my job tomorrow in this tough economy, like, would I be good? Would I be able to find something? Would my side hustles be able to sustain me? Would I just hit the grind so hard on my side hustles that I'd be more than good? Or would I get discouraged, depressed, and, after an already tough couple years, would that just be this thing that broke me and I just could never recover from? Like, I think I'm a strong person, but you never know until you're actually put until you have certain bad things happen to you. And it's easy to say, well, yeah, I made it through this bad situation, so I know I'd be okay, but you don't really know. And that's why it's important to be empathetic of all kinds of situations, even situations you don't think that you would ever end up in, right? Like, I have had a lot of friends getting laid off recently, and I am hopeful. I've worked hard in my career. I've been a part of, like, in a situation where I could or should have been laid off multiple times, and I've been able to survive through my personal connections. But does that mean that I'm infallible? Well, no, I am not. And it's important to, even when you don't necessarily see yourself, like for example, someone loses their parents, right? Like, I've never been a part of that situation, but someday I will be. And I think we'll all, for the most part, probably be a part of most situations. Like, knock on wood, I can go another 30 years never getting laid off. But is there a chance at some point I will get laid off from a job? Probably. I mean, I think there's more than a chance. There's probably a good likelihood. You just never know. My parents someday will pass away, and I'll have to deal with that hardship. I never thought I would have to deal with the hardship of a breakup. I certainly never anticipated having to deal with that, but I certainly was there when others went through it, lending an empathetic ear and suffering with them, which that is, that's what empathy is suffering with others. When you see a tough job market, I'm not in this tough job market. I'm just fine with the job. But I see others around me suffering who have either been laid off, or they're just trying to find a job, or whatever it may be. I see those people, and I am aware of the fact that that could be me. And so I try to be empathetic and say, I can totally understand how frustrating that must be. And you haven't done anything wrong to deserve to be in this situation. It's just a shitty situation, and we're put in those sometimes. And maybe there's a few people in life who never deal with a shitty situation. I mean, I don't know. There's certain things everyone will have to deal with, like your parents passing away. I mean, that's like, I guess if you don't care about your parents, then that's not a hard thing, maybe. But I don't know. But like for the most part, we're all gonna endure most hardships at some point in our life. I think there's probably a few people who will have one relationship for like 50 or 70 or however long and never have to deal with the feeling of breakup or anything like that. There's maybe some people will get lucky and work for one company or their entire life, or they just job hop so they never get laid off or whatever it may be. There might be people who have that happen, but I think, and there's like a million other hardships you can face. I'm just naming a couple people that, thankfully, I've had tight money situations, but I've never had to, I've heard, people saying like, I have to decide what bill to pay because I can't pay all of them. I've never had that happen, thankfully. But could there be a time where I have a situation like that? Absolutely. And so it's important to empathize with people and to not get lost in the fact that maybe right now life ebbs and flows, and maybe right now you're thriving and you're working hard and you're accomplishing things, or maybe you'll never see the downside. Maybe you'll always be thriving, and you might think, and it's very interesting. And I make a lot of poker analogies, but it's a similar thing, right? In poker can be streaky, and there can be like, I've talked a lot about how you can sometimes get your ass kicked in poker, sometimes for like months or like weeks or months or a long time, right? Where you just can't win because it is a luck-based game. Life is a luck-based game as well. And in poker, sometimes you just win everything, right? You're just crushing everyone, and it just seems like you're the smartest, best, most genius person ever. And for those weeks or months, and I've had them, where I just feel like, wow, I could never lose again. I'm just the best of all time. This is just crazy. The reason why I win is just because I'm just the best. I mean, that's just how it goes. But then eventually reality strikes back down, and the downswing happens, which the downswing is basically when things aren't going your way and shit starts going south. And everyone, and life and poker, again, they're very similar. And there's kind of like a saying that's like everyone can, and I'm not saying the exact quote correctly, but it's like the idea that everyone, when things are going well, everyone's a pro. And that's how it is in poker, right? If you're just getting good hands all the time, you're getting lucky, you win all your hands, no one can lose that, right? Like, and again, I'm going to use a poker reference, and if you don't understand poker, then this might not make any sense to you, but like pocket aces, they're like the best hand in poker, right? And if you get pocket aces every hand, you can't lose. Like, no matter how stupid you are, how bad at poker you are, if you had pocket aces every hand, you would make money. You would win at poker. And sometimes in life, there's just people who are dealt pocket aces every hand. And they think like, ha, I'm just so much smarter and better and hardworking than everyone else. That's why I win. But God help them if bad things ever happen to them. If they ever had a downswing, they would be cooked. I truly believe that. And I guess, on an interesting tangent back, I'm realizing suffering does build character a little bit, perhaps, in a way. In a way of everyone has to suffer in life in some ways. The same in poker, like if you just get good hands all the time, you're not going to be ready for how to deal with when things start going bad. And I guess in a way, you could say that about life. But I don't think it's as simple as, you have to add additional suffering, right? And I think, when you go back to the poker analogy, if there was a way for us to benefit, right? Like, let's say, like, one of my friends is playing poker, and I have the power that whenever I want, I can give them a good hand. Or let's not say whenever I want, right? Let's say, like, once every, once every 10 hands, I can give them a good hand, right? You can bet your butt every 10 hands, if that's what I could do, I'm going to give them that good hand. Because they're still going to suffer on the other ones, but they have a little bit added benefit in life because they'll normally get good hands sometimes, right? And then every 10 hands, I get to give them a bonus, okay? And that's how I think of the idea of like something like your parents helping you buy a house or your parents starting a college fund for you, right? Is life is still going to be hard. Having a house, even having a paid off house, does not mean that, okay, life's automatically easy for you. Or having no student loans, okay, life's automatically easy for you. My brother has no student loans because he didn't go to college. But his life is not easy. He still had to suffer plenty. And I know other people who don't have student loans, whether they went to college or not. Life is not easy for them just because they don't have that. They have a little help in that one area. So, it's like, I think that's the important way. And I think that's a good analogy, is to think of it like that. If you could just lend a little help, they're still going to suffer. If I help my friend 1 in every 10 poker hands, still like 8 out of those 9 other hands are probably going to be tough. They're not going to have a good hand, most likely. So they're still going to suffer, but they're going to suffer a little less. And that's the power, right? Is like being able to help each other just suffer a little less, even if you can do something small. And that's kind of how I look at it, is like, I've always been someone who wanted to make a positive impact on those around me. And even if it's something small, like you buy them a game, or you buy them dinner, or something, just a small little thing to make life a little bearable. Like, do I think me buying someone a $5 video game on Steam makes their life easier? Not at all. But does it help a little less? Like, is that like an hour less of suffering, or like a couple hours less of suffering, or whatever it may be in a tough life? And I think the answer to that is yes. And that's why I've always believed that we all have a little more ability to positively impact lives. And it's easy to like see online, like Mr. Beast or something, like giving away like tons of money or whatever, or like, whatever. You watch like big streamers who give away tons of money, or, whatever it may be, and think like, I can't really do that. But even just a small thing can make a big difference, and it pushes the needle, right? And if everyone pushed the needle a little bit, I think that the suffering could be a lot less, and just kind of wanting, like, I hope that people in 20 years in general, and I think it's just the idea of I don't know, making suffering just a little less common. If we all put a little effort into making the suffering a little less, then maybe in 20 years the suffering will be less, and that's my theory anyway. Or I don't know. I like the fact that, people can suffer a little less, even if it's not something that I had a hand in, like, that's okay. Or like, even if it's something that I didn't get to benefit from, that's okay. That if I don't get mine, like if at the end of my life I have given more than I have received, that's okay. And I think a lot of, and I don't want to say a lot of people, because that kind of implies that maybe people now think that, but I'm not sure. I think in general that kind of tide has maybe turned a little bit. The idea of, and I'm pretty darn sure my parents would feel like they're the type that like, oh, that's not fair. Like, that person gets $1,000 because they need help and I don't get $1,000. Like, that's not fair. Well, they need help. Be thankful that you don't need help, and, and help them suffer a little bit less. Because if everyone cannot suffer, then that's a good thing. You know what I mean? And it's kind of not to get political here, but the idea of like not wanting to help others is like giving someone $1,000 to help them out of a hole, or me giving someone a $10 Steam gift because I'm very privileged and have a job and have money and have stuff. Yeah, that I worked for, sure. But like, I'm still fortunate to have that, because some people work hard and have nothing. I have all that stuff. And so like, sure, like I didn't get a $10 random handout today of a Steam game, for example, but like, that's okay, because like I have a lot. And I think if we all consider the things that we do have, I think a lot of people would realize that it's okay to to help pull others up. And yeah, it's the idea of, like pulling others up. A lot of there's like that saying about like pulling up the ladder behind you and stuff. Like you get all the stuff, and I definitely that's another interesting point for me. When I bought a house, like I saw the struggle. Like I saved for my whole life to buy a house in another state, away from my family, and it's a good house. But like, would my initial reaction to would I have some level of like feeling like it's unfair if everyone could just buy a house without suffering at all? Like you're 23 years old and you could just buy a house without saving, without suffering. My initial reaction might be to say like, that kind of sucks. Like I suffered a lot, but again, I think it's human to have that thought initially, but then think like, does this 23-year-old really need to suffer for 10 years, or do I just want them to suffer because I did? Like, it's the idea of like taking one for the team. Like if my 10 years of suffering, and it can't obviously, but like if it could save other people in the future from having to struggle as much, I mean, that seems like a win to me. And I think, if people got credit for it, I think they would like it more, because people want to be credited, like, oh, thank me for helping, and like people want thanks. But I think, and I understand that, because everyone wants to be thanked. They want to be appreciated. They want to feel like their effort is acknowledged. But at the end of the day, it's just about bringing suffering down and being empathetic and saying like, I know you're struggling, and I don't want you to have to, and it doesn't even have to be for your, the initial analogy that I gave was for your kid, which I would think that would be the simplest one. I would expect that's like the baseline, like you should be empathetic for your kid. And it seems like maybe, at least in my family, maybe some of your parents are different. But it seems like at least in my family that, that generation, maybe they don't always believe that, which, if they're not empathetic toward me, I can't imagine how they feel about like Joe Schmo, who's living on the street struggling, or unemployed because they're struggling to find a job. Like, I can only imagine if they have no empathy toward me. God, they have negative empathy toward those people. So it's an interesting conundrum. And I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get out of all this is just try to be empathetic and understand. And I've always been very thankful that I'm someone who's fairly self-aware, and I can laugh at it like Raichu, you are talking crap about these people, but you just said like you would get that feeling too when someone else would get something easier than you. And I think it's natural. No, we're not perfect, right? And so feeling jealous sometimes is okay. And I always say that like people often feel bad. That's like one of the biggest things I hear from people is like, I feel bad because I'm jealous that this is happening. Like some person gets this or some person gets that. And jealousy is an emotion. It's a natural emotion. It means that, like you're alive, you're feeling something, and that's okay. Like it's natural. Like, do I feel jealous when I see someone win the Powerball for like $1 billion? Abso-freaking-lutely, dude. Do you know how great that would be? I could just relax. I could get like good sleep every day. I could spend time with my loved ones. Like I wouldn't have to, like, even right now I'm thinking about how like I spent yesterday spending time with a bunch of friends and stuff, and like, and like it set me so far behind on everything. So I'm gonna have to like work double time every other day this week to like catch up. Like that sucks. Like I wish I could just be rich and I could just hang out. So yeah, I'm jealous that some people are going to win that money and just be able to enjoy life and relax. Yeah, I'm freaking jealous, of course. And am I jealous that like someone who doesn't work hard and maybe is just like their dad owns the company or something, they get like a $500,000 job and so they have a cushy, easy life? Like, yeah, I'm jealous of that. Sure, that's normal. But just don't let it make you become a negative person. Jealousy is okay, but don't let it like drag you down into this feeling of like bitterness, right? Like I will admit, in the instance, sometimes there are times where I feel jealous. Like, wow, that person gets this. That's not fair. And I think the key is to shake it off, like that Taylor Swift song, is to shake it off, and that means You feel the jealousy, you go, yeah, that would be nice. I wish I had that. And then move on, because it's not a healthy emotion to maintain over a long semblance of time, but it is a natural emotion. It's like any emotion. Like being angry all the time is not a healthy emotion, but is it healthy every once in a while to be angry? Absolutely. In my opinion, I'm not a doctor. Is it healthy to be sad all the time? No, but is it normal and okay to be sad sometimes? Of course. Of course. And that's okay. It's just another emotion. And you can feel it, and you shouldn't feel shame for feeling an emotion. You should ask yourself, why am I feeling that? Why do I feel jealous when someone wins the Powerball? Because I want to spend more time with my loved ones, and I understand that I just am not able to in my situation. And so, I understand that. And, then that would be a time where you could also reflect if there was a way to perhaps work things out so that you have more time for them. And for me, I mean, there was a time where I hardly even hung out with people at all. And that was when I would do a reflection and say, well, how can I do this? Well, maybe I'll just always give myself Saturday free to relax. And if I need to work harder on other days to make up for it, so be it. But I want to be able to spend Saturday with friends or doing things I like. And that's my sacrifice because, it's important to I guess reflect on that as well, so that you can understand how maybe you can better yourself, and it doesn't stop me from feeling jealous when I see like X person won $1 billion. Like I still feel jealous. Like, that ain't changing. But I understand why I feel jealous, and I put myself in a position where I can enjoy, even if it's just for one day a week, and the person who won the billion can enjoy that like 7 days a week. Sure, I can only enjoy that one day a week, but you know what? Some people get to enjoy it 0 days a week, or some people don't even have friends or people who care about them, or, whatever it may be. So again, empathy and understanding what you have and the areas that you are lucky in, because again, it's a game of luck. And some people get dealt shit hands. Some people get dealt really freaking good hands. Like you might be born tomorrow as like Jeff Bezos' kid, and you just get a $10 billion for doing nothing, right? Because I think Jeff Bezos, didn't he marry some young woman? Did he? I don't know how young she is, but like maybe you could be born tomorrow as maybe Jeff Bezos' kid. He'll have so much money, he just doesn't need to work or anything. So he'll just be like down the rabbit hole of podcasts. Maybe in 20 years or whatever, if he's going to be born soon, he'll see this video and he'll be like, this pleb YouTuber that has like 190 subscribers is like giving us life advice. But, you could be dealt that hand, or you could be dealt a hand where you can never crawl your way out of, or you could be dealt somewhere in the middle, like me and like many of us other people, where we have some good things in our life, we have some bad things, but we can appreciate those good things, we can appreciate the bad things, and we can do what we can to help bring others, at least that may need a little help. They might need some pulling up. They might need a little, you might only be able to help them one in every 50 hands to give them a good hand, back to that poker hand analogy. But if you can do it, you should do it. Give them that good hand once in every 50. If that good hand once in every 50 means you buy them a Steam game a few times a year to put a smile on their face so they can forget about the fact that they work really long hours and can't really afford anything still, like, you know what? Give them that good hand. And it's okay. And you might not receive anything else. They might not even show the amount of thanks and gratitude that you want. But, you can still know that you're helping someone, and you're spreading that luck, and you're empathizing with the situation that, you know what? It can always be worse. It can always be better. But you know what? It can always be worse. And that's the thing to look at, I always say, for me, one of the things I always say is no matter what's going on in life, I might be working hard. I might be, had some bad things happen in the last year, but I have my health. I feel good. I wake up every day feeling pretty dang healthy, not perfect, but for my age especially, I see a lot of people younger than me that are in pain all the time and stuff. And for me, I feel pretty dang good every day. And so I've got my health. And that is, it's cliche to say, but it really is the greatest gift, because you can do a lot, I can wake up. I can go to work. I'm fortunate. I got a job. I can go downstairs. You know, my dog might cause a little chaos, but I'm fortunate to have him here. Someone who loves me every day. I get to see him and pet him, and he's happy to see me. And he might cause some work, but I have the benefit of having him here. And I have the benefit of waking up in my house that I own. And sometimes it's a little dirty. I got to do some cleaning. I got to do some work around it. Something breaks, but I have that. And sometimes, you know, I worked a lot of hours. I don't have time to play any video games, but I can look around and say I have a really beautiful game collection. And when I do have time, I'm able to enjoy some of those games. And you know, I look at my bank account and I could say I'm not Jeff Bezos, but you know what? I have money in my bank account. I never have to go hungry. I never have to wonder when the next meal will be. I never have to, you know, I have to be smart about what I buy, but like I usually, within reason, don't have to turn down. Like if a friend were to call me and say, "Hey, you want to go out to eat, or you want to go to the movies, or you want to go to like the casino or something," like I would be able to say yes and have the money to do that. So there's a lot of things to be thankful for. I just named a few. My family's alive and well. I have a good family, not perfect, obviously. We talked about their flaws here, but they care about me, and they're overall, you know, decent people. You know, and that's just a few things. And when you look at it closely, there's really a lot more. Some people don't have any of those things, let alone all of them. So you can empathize with them, and you can help bring someone up. And you know, there's certain things, like I said, there's certain things you can't fix. I can't help if someone, you know, doesn't have a good family, but I can well, I guess you can help, because you know, at the end of the day, you can be a loving ear. You know, their mom says that they're disowned for being gay or whatever, something like that. You can be that. You know, you're technically not blood family, obviously, but like you can be a friend, you can be a listener, and you can say, you know what, she said that, but you are still valid. You still matter, and I'm happy to have you here. She might not be happy to have you here, but I'm happy to have you here. And I've had that kind of conversation with people a lot in my life, and it is how I feel. And really good people who have to suffer, and it sucks to see. And I think, you know, it's the same thing. It would be like saying, like, if you have a crap... and thankfully, I see a lot of empathetic people, especially in this day and age, where people are like, you know, my family sucks, but I'm super thankful. Like, they're not angry that someone else has a good family, right? Or, like, a supportive family. Generally, what I see is people, even if they have a shitty family, they go... You know what? My family sucks, but I'm thankful that you can have a good family and that you don't have to deal with this suffering. And that's how it comes down to it. And, you know, like, that's what I would say to someone who had it a little better off. I mean, I have friends. I grew up with some people who had money. And certainly, you know, they didn't have any student loans, and they got to go to the fancier colleges that I would have liked to go to, but wasn't going to take out six-figure student loan stuff. And they have their parents buy them a house or help them buy a house. And it's like, I don't know. I feel thankful for those people that they don't have to. And I hope that people feel thankful for me for the things that I have that, you know, there's certain things that you just have in your life that you can't control, right? We don't control if we get a good family or not. We don't control if we're born into a rich family. We have no control over any of that. So when someone has something that gives them a leg up, you know what? It's okay, and you can be appreciative that they don't have to suffer. I don't know what it's like to have a family who doesn't support you, for example, being gay. My family has openly been supportive. They're not perfect. They're still Republicans that don't really support... I mean, they say they support gay marriage, but they also kind of probably would rip it away if they, you know... But if their candidate... They don't... Let's just say they don't care about it, right? If their candidate says ban all gay marriage, they're going to go, okay... That's fine. So they're not really supportive as much as they don't care about it, right? But like, so I can't fathom someone who openly, you know, like a family who says like, you're evil, or like, I'm never going to speak to you because you're gay or something like that. Thankfully. And you know what? There's rich people who can't fathom having to work side hustles, right? Or use coupons or shop the clearance section. Like, cause they can't fathom any of that stuff. But it's my reality. And if someone doesn't have to If someone, I'm always in some. I've been envious. I admit sometimes I've been envious of people who can just work their one job 8 hours a day and then they're done. And then they spend like 6 hours relaxing playing games. Like I am envious of that, but I'm also happy for them that they don't have to be thinking about how to make extra money or be thinking about, um, you know, be thinking about, yeah, like that's good. Hello, testing. So yeah, we you might see me freeze. I guess the computer still can't handle VNAND, so we're gonna have to re-pivot back. But I just wanted to finish. I'm just gonna talk on the thing. My PC crashed with my VTuber. I gotta figure it out, man. I hope I don't have to buy a new PC. I really don't want to do that. But again, we're talking about privileges, and if I had no other choice than to buy a new PC, I could do it, and that is a privilege. So I could do that. Maybe I better get looking. I don't know, but yeah. So we were talking about how I can feel envy, but I also understand that that's a good thing if someone else doesn't have to suffer. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to: is you are allowed to feel emotions like envy, but try at the end of the day to understand how it's a good thing if someone else doesn't have to suffer. And we all want the best for ourselves, and that's understandable. But try to also want the best for others and help. If someone else, it's if someone else can get a benefit that you don't get, that's okay. You know, because we all get benefits in life. Life is not an even numbers game. Wouldn't that be interesting if life really was like you get like luck points or something and you just like, oh, I'm not using much luck in my first 20, 30 years. But then my later life, oh, I'm going to pop off so many luck points. I'm just going to have everything go right for me. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. So you might have tons of luck in your first half of life and be like, hey, I'm so awesome and cool. Everything goes right for me. And then later in your life, a lot of things go wrong for you, or vice versa. Or you might have a steady stream of luck all throughout, or you might never have luck, or you might always have luck. You never know. And I think, in my opinion, that is kind of what makes life interesting because if everyone was just even all the time, it wouldn't be as interesting, and you never know. I mean, any of us have, any of us could have something really great happen to us tomorrow. Any of us could also have something really bad happen to us tomorrow, and that's not a we don't none of us want something bad for us to happen to all of us tomorrow. But you have to be aware, and you have to just know that who knows what tomorrow holds. I'm hoping for good things for me. I'm hoping for good things for you guys. I'm hoping for good things for everyone, but I'm also aware that that's not the most likely scenario. So let's just, at the end of the day, all we can keep doing is do our best and try to help others where we can. Again, that's the key. Help others and help bring them up, even if it doesn't benefit you. That's okay. You don't have to get benefits from everything. You can just help others just because it's the right thing to do. It's just because you're able to. For me, that's a privilege. Being able to help someone, even if it's a stupid thing like giving someone a gift for a $5 game on Steam, or if it's just sitting there and lending an ear, like whatever it may be, even if it's just something silly like that, something that you might think is small, or you can't do a lot. Mr. Beast can give away $1 million to someone. I can't do that, but I can sure sit there and listen to you vent about your tough day, or I can buy you a game on Steam, or I can take you out to dinner and pay for it. You know what I mean? Something small like that. So do what you can for others, even if it doesn't seem small. The one thing we can all do is be kind. That's the one thing that anyone has the capacity to do. We might not all have money, and some people even listen to this might go, oh, I can't buy people $10 games. I don't have money. And that's totally okay because the most valuable resource you can give someone is your time, whether that be play a game with them, talk to them, listen to them vent, spend time with them, whatever it may be. If you can do that, then that's already more than many people could ever offer. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Well, my friends, I'm sorry about the technical issues that seem to still be cropping up, so I'm gonna have to punt a little bit and figure out what I'm going to do. Um, yeah, back to the drawing board. We might be on a V2. We might be on PNG Tuber for another week. I'm not sure. I'll play it by ear. Until then, though, I hope you enjoy this episode of the podcast, and thank you for listening. And I will see you next month. What'll be the next month date? The 28th? No. 29th? 29th of September? Should be a Monday? Let me think. Yeah, 29th of September, I believe, will be the next episode. So I will see you there and look forward to it. And yeah, thanks for being here. Appreciate you.